Rivers State awakens. Power restored. Questions raised. Return from emergency rule. On September 18, 2025, the 6-month emergency rule in Rivers State officially ended. President Bola Tinubu had earlier, on March 18, declared a state of emergency, suspending the elected governor, Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy, and the State House of Assembly. A sole administrator, Vice Admiral Ibakit Ibas, RETD, was appointed to oversee the affairs of the state during this period. Governor Fubara has since resumed duties. His first public appearance following reinstatement was a Thanksgiving service at his home church in Opobo town. First moves. Fubara visits Presidential Villa. On the evening of September 22, 2025, Governor Fubara made his first official visit to the Presidential Villa in Abuja since being reinstated. He arrived alone at about 6:20 p.m., heading to meet with President Tinubu. The purpose of the meeting has not been made public. However, given the magnitude of the recent changes in the state, expectations are high that issues of governance, reconciliation, and financial transparency will be on the agenda. The FAAC figures and the Assembly's probe. While under the emergency rule, between March and August 2025, Rivers State received roughly 254.37 billion Nigerian Nairas from the Federation Account Allocation Committee, FAAC. The monthly breakdown, from sources including the National Bureau of Statistics, shows allocations of about 44.66 billion Nigerian Nairas in March, 44.42 billion Nigerian Nairas in April, 42.80 billion Nigerian Nairas in May, 42.30 billion Nigerian Nairas in June, 38.42 billion Nigerian Nairas in July, and 41.76 billion Nigerian Nairas in August. These inflows came during the administration of Ibas. Despite large amounts of money coming in, Rivers State has not yet published its 2025 Budget Implementation Report, a document that would normally detail revenues, spending on capital, recurrent costs, like salaries and pensions, and internally generated revenue. Clash of oversight, Assembly versus Ibas. With the emergency rule over and Assembly members back in place, the Rivers State House of Assembly, under Speaker Martin Amewo, has resolved to probe the 6 months under Ibas. The planned investigation aims to examine spending from the Consolidated Revenue Fund during the emergency rule, contracts awarded, other expenditures during that period. In response, Ibas has rejected the probe. His argument centers on a line of constitutional and functional reasoning. He was appointed by the President, not by the State House of Assembly. So in his view, the Assembly lacks the constitutional authority to probe or sanction him since they did not make him administrator. He asserts that supervising him would amount to probing the President himself, and that the Assembly has certain limitations because of the structure of the appointment. He describes the attempt to probe him as a fool's errand. Civil society and public pressure. Civil society organizations, CSOs, in Rivers have been vocal, demanding full accountability. Key concerns. Where has all the money gone, given that many major infrastructure projects remain stalled, including the House of Assembly complex? The lack of the Budget Implementation Report exacerbates doubts since it denies citizens and watchdogs insight into how allocations were spent. Some CSOs argue the emergency rule was itself unconstitutional, or at least outside expected norms, particularly because of how the budget was passed without customary processes, public hearings, etc. What this means politically. These developments suggest several things. Restoration of democratic structures. The end of emergency rule signals a return to the normal constitutional order in Rivers State. But the shift brings new tensions over accountability and legitimacy. Institutional friction. The Assembly's resolve to probe versus Ibas's pushback sets up a potential constitutional conflict. How far can a state legislature probe an administrator appointed by the President? Is oversight through other arms, federal, courts, etc., more appropriate? Public expectations. With large sums involved, citizens will expect transparency. The failure to produce financial reports is likely to worsen distrust. National political optics. Rivers is oil-rich and strategically important. How Tinubu handles the reconciliation, oversight, and governance in Rivers could serve as a test for how his administration approaches similar crises elsewhere. What to watch? Outcome of Fubara-Tinubu meeting. Any communiques or agreements emerging could clarify what is expected of the state government in terms of transparency, governance, and fiscal reporting. Assembly's probe process. Will it move forward in legal terms? Will courts weigh in? Will the Assembly demand documents, summon persons? Publication of the Budget Implementation Report. Success or failure to publish this document soon will be a major signal. Civil society action. If monitoring groups escalate, there could be public pressure, legal challenges, or more vigorous demands for investigations. Conclusion. Rivers State's return from emergency rule marks a turning point. But the path ahead is contested between reclaiming democratic oversight, ensuring accountability, and defining the limits of power and responsibility. The standoff between the Assembly and the former administrator reflects deeper questions about governance in a federal system, and whether promises of stability during crisis can be balanced with openness and constitutional propriety. How the actors, Governor Fubara, President Tinubu, IBAs, the Assembly, and civil society, navigate this moment may well shape the political landscape of Rivers and set precedents for Nigeria's broader federal governance.